3, 2, 1. Paul Sokhi, you are the MD of the award-winning Morrison Community Care Group. Welcome to the Care Home Show.
Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure to have you south of the border today. So good to see you. So great to have you to join me for this episode of the Care Home Show. So I always like to start with this question. Tell me, how did you get into the care sector?
It's started with being a family business. So my mum and dad bought 2 mansion houses in Scotland in the late 80s and converted them into care homes. Subsequently put extensions on them and sort of took them from 8-bedroom homes up to sort of 34-bed and I think a 44-bed care home. Mum was a GP, so she had a clinical background, and Dad was a maths teacher but had been involved in construction, so he sort of oversaw the extensions. I was a lawyer up until 2013, doing transactional work, banking work, and I decided to come into the family business. Mum and Dad had sold one of their homes in 2007 and made a good profit from it, and they decided to keep Abbotsford House really for their retirement, and it was a well-performing care home. So I came into Abbotsford, and I think the first thing I sort of noticed was that there's a change in needs happening. People were having a lot more clinical, service users had a lot more clinical needs, and the sort of residential care was sort of dying away slightly, and we were trying to, I think, rightfully so, trying to keep service users in their houses for a longer time. And so I decided to come in, change the registration at Abbotsford to nursing, and set up a small dom care business. And that was my kind of first entry into the care sector.
Got you. And as we get into the conversation, we'll break down kind of exactly what's happened since then. Yeah. But right, okay. So family business, and then it was after kind of working in the kind of the corporate world, if you like, it felt like the right thing to do to get involved in the family business.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I was working as a lawyer in the credit crunch time, and was working long hours, 6 days a week, and I felt actually my time spent in the family business, if I could keep that work ethic up, would have good outcomes for the business and hopefully for the service users that we were catering to.
Sure, got you. And I guess having had the care homes in the family business for all that time, that's kind of something that you've grown up with. So you've
absolutely
had a kind of a natural affinity.
We've still got staff at Abbotsford who remember me running around the gardens as a child. So,
sure.
So yeah, it's something I've grown around my whole life.
Sure, got you. So tell me a little bit more about the I guess the origin story of the care group, and then kind of break that down into kind of take us through to the current day, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Mum and Dad set up the care homes in the late 80s, and I think their real ethos was to sort of provide a quality service to the community and to an ageing community. The demographics in the 2 areas that they were in was a population that was ageing. So they'd set it up, and obviously they called it Morrison Community Care because they really wanted the facilities to be part of the community. Like I said, they'd sold one in 2007, and they'd kept Abbotsford. So when I came in, as I previously mentioned, one of those things was I wanted to vary it so that we had nurses involved and we could give more clinical care. And secondly, we wanted to set up a domiciliary care business. And really with the dom care business, it wasn't something that was hugely profitable or was meant to be hugely profitable. It was more a marketing tool. What better way to bring people into your care home than to go out and give them care in their own house, first of all. And so it was really about quality, which we achieved, and we got all grade 6s from the Care Inspectorate for our dom care business, and as such it worked. So I think we got to 7 out of 10 admissions coming into the care home were people we'd already given a home care service to. I also set up a daycare service in the care home, and really it was an idea of continuum of care. We could care for you in your house if you needed to come into the care home on certain days, as health or social interaction, as your health deteriorated, or if it was for social interaction, there was that daycare option. And then obviously if you then needed permanent care, we had the care home there in the community. So that was something that Mum and Dad had been passionate about, and which I then went on to really sort of push forward as well.
It's a really good idea as well, because so you've got both ends of the spectrum. From a business perspective, it makes sense because again you're reaching out to the community, and I say it an awful lot, but the homes that I that kind of I observe, if you like, in my day-to-day kind of the management consultancy world, I see the homes that are the most ingrained in the communities are the homes that overall perform well, because they have better relationship, so they have a better employer brand. They tend to do better from an occupancy, from a fee perspective, as well, because they're so proud of what they're doing internally. They want to share it with what's going on locally, and it just reaches out to a wider audience, and it makes great business sense. But then also from the perspective of, so you're somebody living in one of those communities. Moving house is stressful at the best of times. If you're 18 or whether you're 80, it's a tough set of processes. If you've already got an experience of that brand, if you've been in for whether it be some type of dom care or some type of respite care, you already know some of the people. You already recognise some of the ethos. It's far less of a transition. It doesn't detract from the fact that it's still hard, but it's far less of a transition than it would be otherwise. Than I've got to move into a care home and I've never been there before.
Absolutely. And I mean, I guess moving on to some of the things we'll speak about later, the idea for us was, by using technology, was that the standard of care and the way we went about providing care was very similar, whether it be in dom care, daycare, or in the care home. You know, we used one software system, the same care plans, the same record keeping, and that was that idea, to sort of build that trust first of all with a service user in their own house, and then for them to see the same quality of care all the way through their continuum of care with the group.
Sure.
And I think going back to the community point, you know, they talk about what is the sort of catchment area for a care home, and it usually is not a lot. It's 2.5 miles, maybe 5 miles, 10 miles at max. So really, you want to be part of the community. That's what your marketing tool is, and that's why, you know, going back to the name Morrison Community Care, that's what we're about. And I think, you know, as my personal journey went forward, one of the things was we looked at expanding, and now when we build new facilities, we always have that sort of core central area which will have meeting rooms, cinema, spa, bars, club lounges, and it's all areas that we welcome the community in to use, so that the community can feel part of the home, but the residents in the home can still feel part of the community. And I think that's something that we concentrate on. Just because a resident moves into a permanent care facility, they shouldn't be not part of the community.
Yeah.
And so that's something now, you know, as we move forward and we build new homes, it's something that's still at the core of our group ethos.
I had Professor Martin Green on the show a couple of weeks ago now, and that was one of the big subjects that he was talking about. It's something that he's immensely passionate about as well. So I think the more people adopt that type of a model, whether it means you've got a dom care business or whether it means you're just engaging people from the community. Again, in my mind, there's no downside to engaging with the community. It's so point because from both ends of the
and I think as a care sector, we want to see that. You know, I think there's been a lot of bad press, and that can be rightfully so at times. I think we should expose those who are not doing things correctly, but there's not a lot of media coverage on the quality of care that gets done every day across the UK by hard workers, and that's one of the reasons we want to invite the community in, so they can see the good work that our staff do and also the outcomes from that hard work. And so that's important for us, that the facilities that we build and already have are open. They're open doors for people to see what goes on, and for the residents to benefit from that as well. You know, we want our residents, if they go to go get their hair cut, or if they go for a coffee in the cafe, we want them to be able to communicate with people from the community and not just fellow residents. And so it's been an important part of our ethos going forward, is to always have that community core value.
And it's part of the name as well. So
and it's part of the name,
it's obviously something that's really important to you. So obviously, you chose to move into the family business. You could have stayed in your kind of corporate kind of lawyer position from where you were before. So this is obviously something that you've got a passion for. But why is it so important to you personally? Yeah,
I think for me, I've grown up in a family business where it was always important to have quality care. Mum was a doctor before, my sister's a doctor, so it's always been a sort of family that concentrate on people's health and sort of giving back. And what I felt coming into Abbotsford House was we're already giving really good quality, and with certain tweaks here or there, I really feel that we could do this not over and over again, but certainly replicate it. And so that's a big thing for me personally, that we expand, and I guess some will say aggressively. We're building 1 or 2 homes a year, but the main thing for me behind that is that we keep the quality of care. There's no rush for us where like I previously mentioned to you, where we only use bank debt at the moment, so we decide if we're going to expand or not, and we wouldn't do that unless we felt that the quality of care was still within our facilities we're operating. So it was good for us. A couple of weeks ago, Abbotsford got its grades, all 5s, and that's important for us that our current home's still getting those grades while we're building other homes.
Sure.
So my sort of personal push is expansion, but always with quality of care behind it. And I think there's maybe been a worry from regulators about expansion. And they're maybe correct in the big groups, but actually, why shouldn't we be encouraging small family businesses to do 10 homes rather than just 1 home? Because the chances are they really will keep the quality if it's still a group of 10 homes. So I'm quite passionate that we see the smaller homes get that backing to bring the quality they're already doing, but to other local areas.
I think that's one of the things that, so from kind of an observational perspective, I spend my time with the leaders of care businesses. So I think one of the things that's on, let's say, the operators who are quite conscientious, let's say, there's a lot of them who are conscientious of the fact that as they grow, ultimately the culture that they create, what they're trying to achieve, the values that they inspire their team to live by on a day-by-day basis, that are going to ultimately impact the quality of care, the quality of the team, the commercial success of the organisation. It links back to all of those things. I think they recognise the fact that as you grow, ultimately you dilute that, and it's very difficult to sustain that same level of culture. Now, it's not that it's not possible, but obviously it becomes far more difficult when you start branching out into different. It's a multi-site operation anyway, but once you've got a lot of different sites in different regions and things, managing, as you say, that quality is quality across the board, not just from a care perspective, but just the quality of the whole organisation does definitely become an awful lot more difficult. So it sounds that you've got quite a compact model, if you like, but it keeps you close to the action. Make sure that you've got a handle on the quality throughout the entire journey, if you like. Yeah,
I think it's a big thing for us. Is A, we don't grow too big. B, we don't grow too big too fast. But also, and I think it's spoken to this before, is we've really tried to veer away from a tier management structure. One of the things when I did my research, about expanding, was I felt that the bigger groups really had a lot of tier management, and that's something we kind of didn't want to have. We feel that the care manager in a care home should have the responsibility of that home and oversee all of it. But should be able to have direct contact with a managing director or an owner. We didn't want it to go through a general manager, a regional manager, a national man, and that's our idea. So we've tried to set up more of a support network to our care manager. And we've got HR manager, operational, clinical, and finance, and they kind of give support to that care manager. But I would expect my care manager in each home to be able to give me knowledge in all those sections. And that's really important for us, but like I said, it's also important for us that the care manager can get in touch with me or anyone on our board directly. And I think as a result of that, it allows us to make changes quickly. And I think that's the big thing that, I used to think that you could sort of have this perfect care home, and that was, really focused on it was just Abbotsford. But I think, a home's not perfect at any given time. It's about listening to the stakeholders and then making changes from their comments. And if there's loads of tiers of management, by the time a change is made, it's probably too late and you've lost your audience.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas we really want a stakeholder to make a comment and to see the outcome of that comment in a very short period. And what that does is encourage them to make more comments and for us to better our service and therefore better the outcomes of our service users and all the stakeholders.
it makes it very dynamic that way, doesn't it? Because you've got that open channel of communication from the operator to the resident and the other stakeholders and things. You've got then an opportunity to. I mean, people talk about so you said we did type set of circumstances. You can do that on a continual iterative basis to continue making sure that you're pushing forward.
The more regularly you can do this, or you said we did, the better. You know, and also building on that, we also have a we found we did. So we try and highlight not just the things you've told us, but the things that we're constantly auditing and what we've found and what we've done about it.
So that's looking more introspectively. So we've got an opportunity to improve that there.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we saw that there's an opportunity there. This is what we're going to do.
And it's about highlighting that to your service users and their families and your stakeholders so that they gain trust in you. And I think that's the sort of big thing, that if your service users and their families trust you to make the correct changes, you build that relationship. Rather than, you know, if you have your managers or as a group, you start hiding behind doors, there's more chance that families are going to go to a regulator or they're going to try and, you know, jump across the manager. Whereas if they actually see that the care manager in that home is making changes, then they have trust in them. And for the care manager to be able to make that change, they need to have direct contact with a board member or an owner. And so that's why we've kind of set up this structure where it's a lot less tiered and more support to the care manager, who knows their home better than anyone and knows the service users and the families better than anyone.
It's so important because, unfortunately, if you don't help somebody with what opinion to have, if you don't give them the information that they're craving, they'll make up their own opinion.
Absolutely.
And quite often, because of I don't know whether it's just care or this is just kind of the way that people naturally work, they'll often think the worst as well. So there's a friend of mine, he runs a portfolio of care homes. They've been on the acquisition trail. They bought a load of homes, and he's a great operator, really, really solid background, great from a quality, great from a culture, great from a business performance perspective, just an all-round, really, really good, solid operator. And because they bought a number of services, he was kind of making his way around the services, and one of the managers said, "Oh, we're doing a families meeting today. Would you like to come and get involved?" And he loves that type of stuff. So yeah, straight away, absolutely, I'd love to come and get involved. And one of the conversations that was brought up at the time by one of the family members was, "Oh, because you've got vacant beds, are you going to shut us down?
Yeah.
Are you going to shut the home down?"
Yeah.
And my friend was kind of, hang on, what? Like he almost didn't understand the question. Yeah. And it was because they'd got below average occupancy. Yeah. They thought, oh well, they're just going to buy this. They're going to turn it into a block of flats. Yeah. Mum's going to end up, heaven only knows where. Yeah. And they'd spent the 2 weeks in the build up to this just thinking that the family meeting was to say, oh, we're going to close the care home. Yeah. But they didn't know. So he then had the pleasure of being able to say, our whole ethos is this is what we're all about, but to reinforce what they're all about as an organisation. Yeah. And I guess that's kind of a relatively extreme end of the spectrum, but by not having, because they'd been run under the previous operator where there had been no communication, the poor family members and the residents as well, probably, I don't know specifically because the message came from the family member, they were stressed, they were terrified about what the outcome of the situation was. So it just goes to show how improvement that flow of communication is. Key. It's massive. I mean,
it's absolute, and that's with all stakeholders, you know. And that's what we work on, something that we try and push our care managers, is that communication is key. At the end of the day, you're giving service to vulnerable adults, and you need to communicate everything that's going on and all future plans. We have a strategic action plan for the year, which we'll share as much as we can without breaching confidentiality with our stakeholders. But then we also have our managers who have a more day-to-day task action plan, which again they'll try and share as much as they can on a we found we did or you said we did, so that families and residents can see what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that's quite an important thing. I think it's easy when a family member comes into a care home, it's kind of easy to see what's going on the floor, and they can see this sort of touchy-feely care is a good quality, and they can see fluid and food's been given, and they can see that. But sometimes it's not as easy for them to see what's going on behind that, and what the strategy is for the group, and what we're trying to do to improve the service.
Sure.
And so that's something that we really try and push our managers hard to communicate that, whether it through notice boards, whether it be through family meetings, or whether it through just be having an open door policy. We now even have our sort of operational and clinical director will hold, in each home, will hold sort of drop-ins for staff or for families, just so we can have that constant open door communication.
Sure.
With all stakeholders.
And it helps you iterate. And
that's it. And I think the big thing as well is then also communicating outcomes from that. And I think that's something the regulators now concentrate on, rightfully so, is, but what's the actual outcome from all this?
Need some evidence.
An issue's been raised, we've had a chat about it, we've told you what we're going to do, but let's take that right through to the evidence of the outcome, and that's what our sort of action plans will look like. It'll, issue what we're going to do about it, when we're going to do that, and then we've always got a column of evidence that it's been achieved. And I think that's the important thing, is to actually see outcome-based actions.
And that's why I would hazard a guess, a large reason why you've been successful in getting 5s and 6s from a care inspectorate perspective is because you've got the open lines of communication. You're then able to evidence the work that you've done and to prove the quality of what you've been doing.
And I think the regulators, over the last few years, they're more on board with operators, and they're seeing that. They're not coming in to say, right, has there been absolutely no issues? They're saying, right, what issues have there been? What have you done about it as a group or a management team? And what's the outcome? And that's great to see that more of a partnership happening between the regulators and operators, because in the end, assuming you're a good operator, you all want the same outcome, which is the best for the service users.
Cool.
So I think it's good to see the regulators getting on board with that kind of outcome-based inspection as well.
Our world, we don't tend to spend too much kind of in the consultancy work that we don't spend an awful lot of time at, let's say, the more challenging kind of rougher end of the spectrum from a CQC perspective, if you like. It's tend to be the good to great type stuff that we tend to get involved in, but it's equally as important there as well, because people want to see that you're collaborating. People want to see that you're open just as much as anything else and transparent, to be able to say, here's all the great work that we do. Another friend of mine got Sanjay Jorona got a 5 out of 5 outstanding inspection report, and I know part of the reason why he's managed to do that, he's doing an awful lot of stuff that is genuinely outstanding. It's a cut, but you don't manage to achieve that without an awful lot of effort and a great deal of focus and a fantastic team. But it's the way that they've evidenced that, to be able to say, the whole place is an open book. You can scratch under the surface. We're an outstanding operator, and here are the reams upon reams upon reams of all the stuff that we're doing to prove that this is what we're all about.
You should be welcoming the regulators in. That's always our ethos. We should be welcoming them in, so we can show off all the hard work we've done in the last year. That's the way we look at it. They're not someone to be feared. They're someone that you want to work in partnership with, because you've all got hopefully the same outcomes that you want to get to.
Again, it's all about the.
Yeah, and then going back to your point, about the good, having these sort of good and excellent grades, we always say to care managers, if we're interviewing new care managers, that we worry that they'll think, I'm coming into a home and it's got 5s or it's got 6s, and that's good, this will be an easy gig. And we always say, actually, it's harder to maintain 5s and 6s probably than it is to take a home from 2 to 4s, because that kind of to changing a home that's not performing to getting it to an adequate service, you kind of almost know what needs done. But when you get up to the 5s and 6s, it's coming up with new ideas. You're trying to be industry leading, and you really need to evidence these, really good outcomes. So that's always a worry for us, that care managers will think, oh, this will be an easy gig. It's the systems are there. It's already got 5s and 6s, and it's not every year you start again and you build on what you did last year.
We spend a lot of time talking about virtuous cycles of improvement. So you need to make sure that, so if you've got a great, whatever it might be, great concept, you've got a great strategy, you're implementing that strategy well, you're measuring that strategy, but most importantly that you're learning from your measurement so that you can feed that back into your strategy. So again, it's just keeping that cycle moving, keeping that improvement. Because again, you highlighted the fact earlier, care homes it's not like, it's not finite. It's not just like a done thing. You can't just kind of tick a box and just check that off.
Absolutely not. It's a moving beast.
Of course.
And you're dealing with people. You're having people dealing with people, and so every day it comes with new challenges.
Of course.
You know.
One thing that's that we've talked about before. Okay, so the part of the Morrison Community Care Group approach is to have a head office function, but to have to almost recategorise that as a support function. And I'd hazard a guess from the conversations that we've had that that's been contributed an awful lot to your success. Tell me about because I think almost the word head office, it almost sounds, the connotation there is that it's almost like a dictatorial,
absolutely,
stick rather than carrot type organisation, part of the business where they're just going to take information and they're going to tell you what to do, and there's no real kind of collaboration there. And I know obviously what you're doing is completely the opposite end of the spectrum, but explain what that means to the group and how that's kind of come together, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all it's come with its own challenges, because what's been tricky there is really then showing where does the responsibility lie. You know, if you've got an HR manager, but you've got your care manager, and then you have an HR issue, and that's just sort of been the biggest challenge for us. But what we've really been trying to say is, listen, the care manager is responsible for everything in that home, whether it's HR, finance, but this team here are there to support you to do that. They'll maybe do reports for you and show you that, well, you're not hitting this KPI or that KPI, but there's a support network. I would always want my manager to be able to report on these, you know, what, like I said, our head office, which isn't really a head office, but is HR, clinical, operational, and finance, and actually hospitality. But I would always expect my care manager to be able to tell me in the home that they're manager of how we're performing, how our KPIs are in all those sections.
Sure.
And so that's been a challenge to just try and get that, because, you know, you'd have the care manager saying, oh, well, that was HR, or I thought that was and so, but I think we've now got that, you know, where the care managers appreciate everything is their responsibility in their home, but this team are there to support them. They're that support network. They can help them with reports, they can help them with audits, they can show them as a group where we're trying to go strategically in those sections, but like I said, we don't want it to be tiered. You know, it's not the answer to the ops, that's the clinical, that's not what we want. We want it to be flat-lined, and then they're able to then also directly contact anyone who sits on our board, which is me, mum and dad, and a non-exec. It's still a family-owned business.
Sure.
And so that's a big thing for us. But that was a challenge. Is, well, then where does the responsibility lie? And we're really saying the responsibility lies for each home with the care manager. It's your home.
It's almost like so the way that I almost envisage that is the care home manager is almost like the conductor in an orchestra. So they've got the services team around them, and it's a case of kind of calling in the right person, kind of getting the right person to do the right thing at the right time, but in support of the whole thing, rather than... And
even going forward, what we've tried to do is now, rather than board meetings, rather than have HR report on HR, we're trying to have the care managers come to those board meetings and for them to report, so that they understand it is their responsibility. Because before we'd done it the other way, and we've realised that was kind of confusing people. Well, that must be the HR manager who's dealing with that. So now we're saying at board meetings, let's have the care managers come, and they give us their overall report that covers all these sections.
Sure.
But the support team are there to support them with that.
Also, as well, I can imagine. So I can't think of another model where the managers are effectively part of the board meeting. Now, a board meeting is effectively in the sphere of kind of the senior leadership team of the business. Although maybe quite daunting for the first couple of times, I can imagine if you create the right environment for the managers to then succeed and to give them the right support and things, that must be quite an empowering thing for the managers to be part of as well.
From early days, we've always had an open door policy in the board meetings for the care managers to come to. And now we're trying to actually set it out, well, here's what we'd like you guys to report to the board on.
Sure.
So they really feel part of it. But from day one, we've said care managers are welcome to come in, and if there's any issues they want to raise with the board, they can. Because we want our board not to be faceless. And like I said, it's not a big board, it's me, my mum, dad, and then a non-exec. So we want, you know, all our staff to know who the board are. The front of every care home, we have our structure, and we have our contact details. For every board member. It's the first thing you'll see when you come in, because we want any stakeholder, any staff member to be able to even though we don't have a tier structure as such, but even still we want them to be able to contact us directly if there's something they feel that we need to know that's not made it to us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so taking this support function, the kind of the actual strategic side, the kind of practical application side, almost like the philosophy side and the ethos side of that. So what would you say the overall benefit of doing that is to the group and to the homes individually?
We think, first of all, keeping with what I was saying about the care manager overseeing their home, I think that makes them feel really responsible for their home. It's their home. And that's allowed us to expand because the care manager is overseeing their home, and so actually it shouldn't really matter if you have 2 homes or 10 homes, because your manager is kind of unaffected by that growth.
Sure.
And by not having a bigger and bigger tier system as you get bigger, again, the care manager and that one care home shouldn't really be affected by your growth. So I think that's the main thing that's allowed really the ethos that we had when we had one care home almost to stay the exact same as we grow. And that's what's important for us. And like I said, if we ever saw that ethos changing, we would slow things down. But that was the most important thing for us, was how do we keep, starting with Abbotsford, our original home, how do we keep that exact ethos as we build more? Abbotsford shouldn't be affected by what goes on out with its doors, because it's a care home run by a care manager. So that's why we hope by putting a support team in, that allows the expansion to happen without a change in the actual day-to-day running of Abbotsford House. Whereas I think, the tier system, the more homes you build, the more the tier gets bigger, and the harder it is for the care manager at Abbotsford House to see me, or to speak to me, or to speak to the board. And that's what we didn't want to happen. We got Abbotsford to a really good place, and we sort of said, well, how do we keep this at a really good place, but replicate it? And I think this, hopefully, has been the best way to do it, and so far seems to be working.
And what kind of internally, what type of leadership and management changes have you had to kind of affect to make the whole thing work, if you like?
I think, like I said, the trickiest part has just been trying to clearly set out where responsibilities lie. Because if you take the situation with just Abbotsford, before you didn't have these support teams, so it suddenly becomes, we don't want a care manager going, oh, that's finance, so I hand that to finance, and I'll never look at financing again, and I won't know how the home's performing. And so I think that's really been the trickiest bit. It's sort of saying, look, these guys are here to support you. They're not here for you to hand responsibility over. And that's been quite a challenge.
Sure.
Because it's new. It's new to us. It's new to everyone. But I think in time it embeds in, but also by having, your board meeting where the manager's having to report on everything, they start to see, well, actually, I can't just hand things to the support team. And also the support team are learning when to hand things back and when to take things from managers.
Sure.
And I think even with the best systems in the world, these things will just take a bit of time.
Sure.
And it probably did take us a year or 18 months to kind of get it to where we wanted. But again, by not having that tier system, we as owners were able to watch that over a 12 or 18 month period and intervene and help sort of show what the group strategy was and why it's that strategy and what we're hoping to achieve. And like I said, I think that's us kind of got there now with it. But certainly looking back, the biggest challenge, if someone else was to try and do it like we've done, is kind of just setting out that responsibility from day one. That is a challenge, and it takes time, and I think you do need to be clear with what you expect from each individual.
I guess what you're trying to do is instill a slightly different behaviour pattern than you would do otherwise. Absolutely. Especially when you come to building new homes. There's I'd imagine that your induction process will almost have to include, we work in a slightly different way to a lot of other operators. It looks like this. The expectation is different, and this is how we're gonna map things out so that it works better for you. But your approach throughout this, the first couple of months might be a little bit different because we do take a slightly different approach.
Absolutely, and what I would say on that is that I've found certainly it's a lot easier to do that starting a new home and commissioning a new home than it was going into a care home that'd been run by my parents for 29 years. And actually for me it's quite daunting now if we were to look at a home to buy that's running that's daunting for me to go in and say, well, actually,
do that
this
cultural
is how
transformation thing.
to do that cultural transformation. Whereas, while we build a new home, we're now very good at that. Sort of setting out the culture at the beginning, giving that support, getting the staff in a good few months before we open, which is a cost, but it allows us to get the ethos drilled into everyone from the beginning.
It's a very worthwhile investment.
Really worthwhile investment. And so I would say, that's the other reason that my decision was to go with new builds as we expanded than buying current homes.
Sure.
It was that ethos. The other reason, separate to ethos, was just we felt with some of the old, going back to why and how I expanded, I felt we were ready to expand because we'd got Abbotsford to where we wanted it, been graded all 6s 2 years in a row. And I started to look at homes that were for sale, and what we were finding was they were doing well, they were producing a good EBITDA, and therefore the sellers were wanting a good multiple. And the worry for us was, capex costs were high and will continue to get higher and higher, which we see at Abbotsford, our own home.
Of course.
Regulators could come in and say, well, these bedrooms aren't compliant anymore, and so you could have an issue with your room numbers. And thirdly, I think with the older homes, you are always at a risk that a new build home is going to happen on your doorstep.
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying a building's enough to do that. I think people are wise now that not only do you need to build a luxury and a good environment, but you need to give a good service.
Of course.
But that was my sort of worry with going down the older care home route for expansion. That, coupled with what we're explaining, was the idea of going in and changing that culture in the home that could have been running for 20 or 30 years. Having just done it, I found quite daunting.
Sure.
And hence why we've gone down this route of building new homes, commissioning new homes.
And again, it's on some level, it's the creation of a culture, which comes, of course, with its own challenges and things.
Absolutely.
But because you've got different services that you're already providing, you've already got that. You've got a benchmark to be able to work from and things
Absolutely.
like that. So,
what I would say though, and that is, and I've been naive in this, you think that each time you open a new one, you'll be able to do it exactly like you did it, but there's always
there's always going to be
it's
nuance.
people, so there's always new and different surprising things that happen.
Of course.
But certainly as a group, we find it easier to sort of instill our group ethos and culture by commissioning new homes.
Sure, makes sense. And it sounds like that's going to be part of the strategy moving forward. So, good work and good luck to you with the new builds and things.
Thank you.
One of the things that Morrison Community Care Group does fantastically well is, so to my understanding, it's just about as close to being paperless as is humanly possible for a care group.
So,
I appreciate you've got some things that the care inspectorate say that you do have to have still in kind of a paper format, but more or less paperless.
Yep.
Tell me about that journey, because there's going to be a lot of operators that get to sit there and think, whoa, that sounds almost unachievable.
It's been a long journey. Again, I would say we found it a lot easier to do when we're commissioning a new home than when I came into Abbotsford and went from a fully paper system to working it through to become, like you said, pretty much paperless. There's a few things the regulators and insurers will still want in paper form, various certificates, but we have from signing into our building, you sign in electronically, to our staff signing in and out for their rotas electronically, our rota systems electronic, our invoicing systems electronic, our managing all pay, PAYE, everything like that is done electronically. Our clinical we've got clinical software for care plans, all our charts, anything to do with clinical care. And then we've also got the EMR system, so all our medication administration is done electronically. And finally, our training's done online training, although we back that up with face-to-face training to support
it.
Take a blended model. So it's been a journey. Like I said, it was a lot harder going into a current home that'd been running and turning a paper system paperless, but I think it was worth doing. It's certainly made us much more compliant. It's a lot easier to get an overview, especially if you're a group that's growing. It's allowed us to be able to much easier replicate our model and instill our ethos as we grow. If I set up a new home tomorrow, all our our systems there. So it's been really helpful there. It's allowed staff to input data a lot faster. They've all got handsets now, so that allows more quality time with residents, which is obviously something that all operators will be aiming for. And I think I've said to you before, it's not yet actually reduced staffing. So some people say, "Oh, you've gone paperless. Does it help costs?" And it hasn't, and that's not why we've done it. We've done it to try and be more compliant and try and make our service better. I think before we can see staffing reduce, we'll need software to become more interactive. We'll need residents and their families to be able to interact with technology. Something that takes a lot of time for staff is data input. And even though it's faster now, it still takes time. And I think we could get to a place where families can go on and they can add to care plans and even residents themselves. I think AI will come in as well, and hopefully that will start picking up information, so it will need less manual data input. And thirdly, in time, I would like to think robotic technology will come in, and so whereas now you maybe need 2 staff members to use a hoist, hopefully that will become a robotic movement. And I think that technology, as it comes in the coming years, will probably help reduce staffing, which you would like to think will then allow operators to be able to give quality care even in areas where maybe they can't get the fees that we feel are needed at the moment to give the quality that we would aim to produce. But as you said, we are pretty much paperless. The issue with that, again, which I think it's point is to do that, it's involved us having about 6 systems at the moment. In an ideal world, it'd be great to have one system that the doctors use, NHS use, we use, and I don't think that'll come, and I think for reasons of competition, maybe it's not great to just have one system, but what we do need is software manufacturers making their software much more open-ended, so that we can have the software speaking to each other. And I think countries like Denmark and stuff are leading the way with that, and I think we're not as an industry at the moment doing great. Most of the software that you'll see on the market won't speak to other competitors' software. Yet they might not have an answer to one of the situations you're trying to deal with. So for me, that's something I'm pushing. I'm speaking with Scottish Care a lot about it. I think Scottish Care and Donald Casco are really behind technology coming into the sector and how it can improve outcomes for residents. And I was quite shocked as a younger person going into the industry how far behind the times we are with technology. And like you said, I think operators are scared to kind of do it. But my advice is, yes, do it one bit at a time. But in saying that, I think once you decide to do that one bit, whether it be a rota, whether it be care planning, you then run with it. What was an issue for us is if people start having a paper-based system running alongside an electronic system, and they're too scared, and it's duplication, and it just doesn't quite work. So I think you're better doing it piece by piece, but when you do each piece, actually run with it. And I think when you have a paper system and you're turning it electronically, it will just take time, and you need to be patient. But you then will hopefully see the rewards at the end of that, and hopefully it will be a benefit to the outcomes of your residents and staff.
So, to what extent? So you've got 6 different platforms effectively running at the moment to run the operations of your care home group. I think the technical term is an API, where data basically gets shared between different pieces of software. How well or otherwise are the APIs within the current technology stack, and how well are the systems talking to each other? Really
not at all, I would say. They all at the moment involve some sort of manual input for them to speak at all.
So you'd almost do like a data download into an Excel and then share it with the different systems.
Absolutely. Something we're looking at the moment with our technology guys is trying to just get like a one login. So them actually making a one login. It's not because the companies that are giving us the software don't have that. You've got to sign into 6 systems. So we're now looking at on our own hardware. Can we then just put a one login so that when you log in, you've at least got your 6 links and you're not having to put your name and a password in onto 6 different systems? But that's us doing that. That's then bringing in another person to help us do that. Whereas, like I said, it'd be great if these systems could speak to each other, because it would have great outcomes. For instance, we have and I know the guys at StoryCare are they are open to this idea, but StoryCare is something we use that monitors our activities. Families can sign in to see what their relatives done that day. They can view pictures or songs that their family members listen to, but they can also upload things. So if they're on holiday, they can upload pictures or here's some music we're listening to, and it allows the families and the resident to interact, which is great. But that system won't speak to our current system, which the staff will put progress notes on to sort of discuss how the resident's day's gone. Now, so that's manual data input, whereas we would rather StoryCare could input at least the activity part straight into that progress note. So while they might still have some clinical stuff to add, at least the activity part would automatically be there.
That would make sense.
And so that's just one example, but there's loads of examples that I could give you where I don't think it'll stifle. It's not that you're going to use that system or that system. People want to, I think we can still have competition, but we just need the systems speaking to each other.
I think we'll probably not a conversation to explore in too much detail whilst we're talking now, but I'm sure there's a thing called an ESB. I can't remember what the acronym basically stands for, but an ESB basically connects different API systems. So if you've got an open API, so if your software can talk to other software providers, effectively it's almost like an adapter plug between between software platforms to be able to transfer from one to the other. I think there's a certain amount of service that has to go with the technology to get them to talk to each other, but there is technology that helps different software platforms to be able to talk to each other. So I'll try and remember the company who it was, and we'll talk about that later. But fundamentally, it should work.
It should work, and I mean, it's probably getting a wee bit over my head on that technology side, but and my understanding from the people that advise this is a lot of the software doesn't have that open API that allows you to do that in the first place. And I think they may be worried competitors will come in and steal their idea. I don't know what's behind it, but I think as an industry we want the guys producing this software to have open API software, so that we can then get this overall benefit for our service users and staff.
That makes sense. So what can you share from the perspective of your learnings from transforming the business from entirely paper to just about as paperless as you could possibly get? What was that experience like? Because I can imagine there's a lot of operators sitting there thinking, that sounds great, but that sounds stressful as hell to undergo the process.
I mean, I think I'd be lying if I said that, like I said, turning a home that was already paperless, it had all paper into paperless, wasn't stressful. It was. When I came into Abbotsford, we had staff who didn't know how to use a mouse. They would kind of like, how does that work? And so I think you do need patience. I think you, like I said, need to do it bit by bit. But when you do one bit, run with it. Don't keep this paper and everyone's too scared. You actually, if you've got to embrace it. I think technology in general is coming more and more into people's everyday life. So the carers now coming to us tend to use an iPhone or use some sort of smartphone. So I think naturally people are getting more used to technology, and that's going to assist. The challenge is getting everyone to buy into it, and I think you have to show what the benefits to everyone is, because otherwise people don't want to do it. So I think it's very important to say, well, actually, look, this is how much quicker you could input data, and this, and showing residents, and it's getting everyone on board, because once they believe in it, they're willing to give it a go. And so, like I said to you, for us personally, we find it easier when we're setting up a new home, because it's from day one you're saying, this is what we use, this is how we use it. And we can kind of do the whole shebang at once. Whereas I think my advice to people who have current homes, you just need to do it bit by bit. I was always, although some of the bigger homes or bigger groups interestingly have gone EMARS first, EMARS was always the last thing that I did. I went paperless and everything else, but with drug administration, where you really are, it's life or death, I thought I'm going to wait until I'm really happy that my staff know how to use all the systems, I've embraced technology. Also, the EMAR technology itself has got better before I do that. So interestingly, EMARS was the last thing we did, whereas I see the bigger groups, this is the first thing that they're going to. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it personally. The last point I would say is I think it's good to have champions. So the software companies will come and they'll give you the training, and it's usually quite expensive, but it's good to have champions for each. So we've got a champion for our rota system, a champion for our someone who can really kind of take more time with the staff. I think what happens is the guys come in from the software companies, they give you this big training, it all makes sense at the time,
and then people forget,
and you might not be doing one bit of it for another month, so I think you need people on the floor who have the time and can help you in a live environment.
Yeah,
I think it's very important. And so even when we open new homes, we'll always have some of our champions from the other homes coming there and spending time with the staff.
Sure.
Whereas the software companies can go, right, we're coming out, we're going to give you this training, it'll be 3-4 hour days, and it's not. I don't think it's the easiest way for the staff to learn.
Sure. Like people don't start adjusting their behaviour in such a short space of time.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're talking about. It's a behavioural, it's a cultural change. Especially where you've got a home, if it's been around, in the family for 25, 30 years, whatever, you've got those ingrained behaviours. You've had that paper system that's probably been around for a long time. It might have been improved over the years, but it's still a paper process, and then you get presented with an iPad and a piece of tech, and it's whoa.
By the kids you used to see running around in the garden.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's and that is, that's a tricky thing. It's something, particularly, even across the group, we have staff stay with us, a good length of time, which is good, and it has all its benefits. But with that also means it's in sometimes an environment that's hard to bring in change, and it's something that needs managed correctly. And like I said, I think the best thing is always to try and show people what the benefit, what you're trying to achieve by it. There's no point in just someone handing an iPad or a phone and because they don't know how to use it, it's taking them just as long to handwrite it. It's getting the training enough that they see the benefit. And once they buy into it, then that's half the battle.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you've been leading the team now for a number of years. You've seen the business through quite a lot of transformation, whether that be kind of technological, cultural, certainly a lot of growth. What would you say your biggest leadership lessons have been?
I think it's going back to what we talked about, is communication. It's listening to staff and all the stakeholders, but then showing that you're actioning that. I think you very quickly lose your audience if they're telling you things and they don't see change.
Sure.
So when I look back, and 7 years I've been in the family business, there's been lots of change, but a lot of that change has come from feedback to us.
Sure.
And I think that then, your staff then buy into you, and they want to work for you because they know that if they bring stuff to you, they're going to see a change. Doesn't mean you change everything. There's things that just can't be done or you can't do right away. But I think if you at least communicate that, we're taking this point on board, but at this point we can't, or this point we're going to take on board, but it might be a few months. But it's that, I think you don't want things to be a paper exercise. And I think a lot of time people go, we're going to have a family meeting or a residence meeting or staff meeting, and it becomes a real kind of tick box. We had a meeting. But then you go back and you see all those things that were raised. Nothing's happened. Yeah. And so I think it's a big thing is you need to actually action what you're hearing, but then to highlight that action's been done.
It needs to have meaning, needs to have purpose, needs to have tangible results. Again, it's evidencing stuff as well, isn't it? It's okay. So whether we saw, we did, or you said we did, it's again, it's that iterative process, isn't it? I had Kath Fairhurst, the COO of New Care, on quite recently, and her 3 favourite I's, I think, were innovation, inspiration, and iteration. And I love the 3 I's off the back of that. We haven't talked about the other 2 explicitly, but implicitly they've been kind of mixed in with all of the stuff that we've been talking about. And again, it comes back to that point around the virtuous cycle of improvement. Just because you're doing a good job today, that doesn't necessarily mean that good job today will be a good job tomorrow, because again, things are dynamic.
Things are moving, and we see things that we kind of pioneered now are part of the regular going in care homes. So it's always trying to, like I said, look back at what you have done first of all, but then that should affect your strategy and what you're doing going forward. But for us, leadership wise, is listening to the staff and all stakeholders and actioning it and highlighting that you've actioned what you're saying. And also, it's the old saying, but lead by example. If they see the owners and the directors in, and they see that they are passionate about the quality of care, and they're not just coming in and asking about occupancy or KPI, and it's, our, like I said to you before, our simple ethos is great quality care, business will take care of itself, because if your care is great, you've your home's going to be full. Your home's full, you'd probably be able to control your fees to where you need them to be for the business to be viable. And that's just, that's our process.
Yeah.
I think, we've touched on at the moment, unfortunately, your care homes probably have to be in the correct areas to be able to have any input in fees, and that's unfortunate, I think, at the moment, but hopefully government will start to look at where the correct price of care needs to be. But going back to leadership, I think you need to be setting that example that quality care is important to the group, and we'll, other people will, will attend handovers, will go to, it's, I think it's important that you lead by example.
Sure, definitely. And one thing that we talked about it a couple of times, but how important would you say that culture is within the group?
Yeah, I think for our group and any group, it's super important. You can't watch everything that's done, and that's one thing I've noticed as we do expand. You no longer can go to every handover. You can't. So you need the culture to be correct, and you want to be replicating that culture. I think probably jumping down to later, but advice I was given, mum and dad's main ethos was always have a good core staff, and if you have a good core staff, they'll help support new staff that come in, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but we'll whistle blow if there's any newcomers that aren't performing to where they should be.
Sure.
And that is culture. It's having that core staff there that live and breathe the culture of the group. And I think first of all, to have that culture, you need people to know what it actually is.
Yeah.
So we always have our aims and objectives at the front of the homes. We also have them at the front of the staff book in your induction. So from day one, we're saying, look, this is what we're aiming to achieve. And I think, going back to this word that keeps coming up this whole day is communication. It's communicating your culture. What is your actual culture? And all your stakeholders should know what that is.
Sure.
And they should help add to that. And so that's, that's an answer to your question, culture is the main thing. It's our service, that is our product, really. And as I touched on before, you can build fancy luxury care homes, but it's the service and the culture inside that facility that's what's going to matter.
Of course. It's an interesting one, again, from kind of a sector observer, if you look. Well, I spend a lot of time with different operators. I think implicitly people do a good job of instilling their culture, but the one thing that I see is that to some extent they may have designed parts of the elements of their culture, or they might do a good job of instilling parts of their culture, but they've never gone to the effort of really designing exactly the standards that they want to uphold. What are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing what you're doing? What is it you're trying to achieve from a vision perspective? How should the team behave? Again, it's setting out your stall to start off with, so that everyone can work cohesively together to say, right, okay, so this is what we're going to go and achieve, and this is how we're going to go and achieve it. And it's self-reinforcing, to your point as well. So if you've got a well-aligned group of people, and it happens you employ somebody that's not going to fit that culture, they're going to qualify themselves out, because they're not. They might be absolutely perfect for a home down the road, but they're not willing to uphold that particular standard that you've set out within your organisation.
I think for us, setting out the culture, like I said, first of all, it starts with outcomes. I think you have to start with what you're looking to achieve from your culture, and then, like you said, we'll do that strategically. And then we'll break that down more to not task focused, but a more day-to-day. How do you achieve that? So, at board level, we'll look strategically, but then we want all our care managers to then set out daily so that we have those action plans there, and we'll review them monthly. So it's kind of starting with here are the big strategic outcomes we want to achieve from our culture, and then breaking that down. What do we actually need to do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis to get that? And all the reviews we have as a group are, we have a weekly review, a monthly, a 3 monthly, a 6 monthly, and a year. And at every point we'll go back to the outcomes we were aiming to achieve. And and that's where our culture comes from. What culture will achieve these outcomes, rather than the other way around kind of thing.
It's breaking it down again, coming back to the communication thing. if every team member knows what their own contribution is towards the strategic objectives that are relevant to your intent and your vision as an organisation, then everyone's on that journey with you. Again, it has to be clearly communicated, and it has to be positively reinforced as well. It can never be a stick set of circumstances. It's got to be a positive reward, a positive incentive for people to show up to work with the right values, with the right behaviours, and acting in a way that's going to help people, help the organisation, the team, to be able to achieve what it is they're looking to achieve.
And I think on that exact point is, that's how you attract good workers. If they are coming to a quality facility where they see quality service, that's where they're going to want to come work.
That's what they're signing up to. They want to be part of that journey.
And that's what's important to us. And that's, I said, when we open up our care homes to the community, it's not just for, it's also for people to come who might be interested in working there, for people to see what goes on and to see the outcomes that we're achieving daily for our service users. And so I think it's important, if you're going to attract people, like you said, with your culture, is that they see that culture in front of them. And that helps you to continue that culture on.
It's an employer brand thing, isn't it? The way that I describe it. Okay, so if you've got a great culture within a group, within a care home, because obviously there's two different levels, but let's say for one home, if you've got a group of people that are working together cohesively, they're all contributing something to a common goal for that, which again is going to be your intent and your vision for what you're trying to achieve for the residents. People just aren't going to want to leave, because why would you want to go and work somewhere down the road, even if it's maybe even slightly more money, when you've got this fantastic tribe of people that you're working with who've got that same worldview. Absolutely. Cost of recruitment, time of recruitment goes down dramatically. The more consistent the group of people that you've got working within that team, the quality of the service to the quality of the care given to the residents going to go up, the quality of the life experience for the residents going to go up. CQC or whoever the regulator is will recognise that, because the lives of the residents are going up, and every individual kind of roles, responsibilities are being fulfilled to the entirety, to the level of expectation that you've set out. And if you've got better CQC or regulatory inspection report, the likelihood is the community, if you're engaging with them properly, they're going to see that, and your opportunities for occupancy and private fees, it all contributes to a.
I've always said, I think as long as you're looking at long term, quality care and business go hand in hand. They're not the opposite of each other.
Sure.
Good quality care will always look after business, and something in our group, and I think all our staff would reiterate, is we don't really talk about the business side at all. We just concentrate on quality of care, and constantly reinvesting into our staff and into our facilities, and that's part of our main aims and objectives. When you do it, it's always about reinvestment into our service and into our staff, so that we can continue that culture on and attract more people in. And really, like I said, if the quality of care is good, there'd be something wrong somewhere if the business wasn't taking care of itself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely agree. Tell me, okay, so if you were to give somebody looking to make a positive impact on the care sector just one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I think, going back to what I had, is you need that good core staff there. But, and it's this favourite word, it's communication. What's important for us is that we've got a very open culture. Staff will make mistakes. We're humans, and we're in a high pressure environment. And so we've always encouraged our staff, even if you make a mistake, tell us. And we've got the support mechanisms, let's deal with it. And I think that's what's important, that if you're going to have a positive impact, you really need that open culture and good core staff, and you need to be supporting them. And if you do that, then there should be a positive impact on the service users. And it's listening to your staff and all stakeholders, your residents, and acting on it. And if you do that, you're going to have positive outcomes, and you'll have that impact. But for us, it's that really open culture. A lot of the other kind of homes we've gone into, it seems quite closed, and managers' doors closed, and it's all, no one really, but I think it needs to be really open. And the more communication you have, the more of a positive impact you're going to have. That's my take on it.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And for you personally, what's been the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
A couple of pieces. I think one of the things my dad always sort of instilled in me was, they had their one or two homes. He always said, always going to the local restaurant with my head held high because I know the quality of care I'm giving to the community is good.
Sure.
And I've sort of kept that with me, but I feel that you can do that and expand, but actually you should be going to the restaurants and all the communities that we now operate in with your health. So that's been a big thing. And, and that sort of Dad's point is, if expansion ever affects that, you're going too fast. And so I think it's important that that you should be able to go out in the community that you're operating in and be very confident that you're giving the best service. I think for me, I brought from my law career attention to detail, and I try and instill that in our management team, everything they do. I think if you're going to get 6s and 5s, their attention to detail's got to be really on point with everything.
Yep.
And that gives the best outcome for our service users as well. So it's really important for us, if we're writing care plans or whatever we're doing, that the details there. So I think that's probably my main piece. And I think finally for me, no matter whether you're the managing director or the owner, all the way through, there's going to be certain tasks that you enjoy less than others. There's going to be tasks that are repetitive, but they need done. You look at your sports stars, and and there's going to be these bits, but you just need to get up and get them done. And reward yourself. So often, every day I'll go through all my emails and make sure they're archived correctly, and then maybe have a coffee after 20, and have these wee rewards. But I think that's the thing I say to my look, there's certain things that I know that you won't enjoy doing as much as other things, but you still need to get them done.
Still got to get them done.
And so I always say that, get them done first, and then go into the tasks that you enjoy more. But there's going to be certain things in an organisation that just need done.
Sure.
And I took that as a lawyer. Our partners used to say there's things as a trainee that you didn't want to do, but it needs done. So I think they're the tasks. You get up, you get them done, you reward yourself for them, and then you can concentrate on the other parts of the job that you really enjoy.
Sure, it's all about prioritisation. Then, in which case, I think Brian Tracy wrote an entire book called "Eat That Frog," which is literally just about do that one thing that's going to make the biggest difference. Just get it off your desk. Make that the one thing that you do, and then you've got the rest of the day to focus on everything.
Yeah, that got instilled into me as a lawyer, and what I've tried to bring into the organisation.
I think that's another great piece of advice. So, Paul Sokhi, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks very
so
much, Randy. Thanks,
being on the Care Home Show.
Thank you.